James Akena presidency of the UPC illegal, null and void. We want to give you a background of that conversation before we dive into depth of it, looking at something compiled by Jingo in regards to this presidency. Take a look.
In 2015, the Uganda People's Congress UPC held a delegates conference in which Jimmy Akena, the son of the late President Milton Obote, was elected president of the party.
Do solemnly swear by the Almighty God.
However, Akena's elections left some party members disgruntled. They claimed Akena imposed himself on the seat against the then party president Olalotunu.
Jimmy somehow opted to call out some kind of informal meeting for majority members of the party, delegates granted, and constituted themselves into a delegates conference, thereby declaring himself a president. Jimmy also made an important institution that does not exist in the party constitution, called himself president-elect. We do not have president-elect positions in UPC.
Party members, the late Joseph Bosa, Isha Otto Amiza, and Professor Edward Kakonge applied for a judicial review in the High Court, saying Akena's election was illegal. 3 judges, Irene Muriagonja, Christopher Madrama, and Justice Elizabeth Musoke, ruled in favor of Professor Kakonge and others. However, the UPC Party Secretary General Fred Ebil says the ruling was overtaken by events.
So by the time elections took place on the 1st August 2020, on a Saturday, we didn't have any ruling extracted or any court order barring the delegate conference until Monday, when we had even sent a report to the Electoral Commission, the returns of the delegate conference of 1st August 2020. So it was overtaken by events.
Even after the ruling, Joseph Chaze, an advocate, appealed to the Supreme Court seeking to overturn the Court of Appeal judgment against Akena. But Ebil says the party did not instruct Chaze to represent Akena in the Supreme Court.
There was a notice filed by Counsel Chaze in 2020, but he was not given instruction to proceed. There was no need to appeal in the court, in the Supreme Court. That's why he never filed even any submission.
On Friday, 13th October, Supreme Court Justice Owinyidoro, Faith Mwonda, Tibatemwa Ikurukubinza, and Mike Chibita unanimously agreed with the earlier rulings. Party stalwart Joseph Ochieno says Akena has been illegally occupying the office of the party president all these years.
And the court agreed with them that Jimmy did not follow the right process, basically usurped the powers of the president. So really from 2016 until today, the party is literally being held hostage.
Ochieno claims he was rightly elected as the president of the party in 2020.
Amongst 4 candidates who stood for those elections, I stood in those elections. The elections took place in December 2020. I won those elections. The matter, separate matter, is now in court. That's the last bit of sorting out UPC.
Otieno never participated in that election of ours, which was the legitimate election. He participated in another kangaroo election organized by Peter Walubiri.
Ebil says Jimmy Akena is still the party president until the party holds its next delegates conference in 2025.
Akena cannot get out of office because of a procedure in court which he was not party to. He had never instructed an appeal. For that matter, we only know of an appeal 34 in the Supreme Court, appealed by Kakonge and the group. Because as you know, Honorable Akena's term ends in 2025. We shall have a delegate conference which will put everything to rest.
Under Akena, UPC entered a cooperation agreement with the ruling NRM party, which led to Akena's wife, Beta Mongi, being appointed to cabinet.
There are programs that we work with them through iPod, you know it very well, to see that we have a peaceful Uganda.
It's the deal that serves them and serves their masters. Betty could easily relinquish her membership of UPC and serve in the NRA. We will wish her well. There are many members of NRA regime who are formerly UPC. But yes, Jimmy has got a particular relationship with Mr. Museveni, and it's one for which he should really be ashamed. The father of this nation, who's Jimmy Akena's father, Milton Obote, must be an extremely sad man in heaven.
Ochieno believes the Supreme Court ruling has softened the ground for Akena to be uprooted from the party headquarters at the Uganda House to allow UPC move forward. Jingo Francis, NTV.
Well, thank you so much, Jingo Francis, for that compilation of the gist of the matter. But the good news is that we actually do have those two gentlemen sit with us here in Morning at NTV. Political analyst Joseph Ochieno joins us. Equally, we do have the UPC Secretary General here to join the debate on the facts and the truth, and that is Mr. Fred Ebil. Let me start with Mr. Ebil. Good morning to you.
Morning, madam.
Well, the reality is what it is. Let's talk about the facts and the truth of this politics.
Yeah, morning viewers, and I want to thank NTV for giving us this opportunity to explain further the facts and the truth. That's what politics is all about. Clearly, in 2015, there was an election which took place in polling stations, which we call the district conference, and that's where the ballot papers were taken to every district in Uganda. And there were many candidates, including Bosa. There were so many candidates, but Otieno was not part of it. Walubiri was not part of it. And in this election, Jimmy Akena won with 2/3 of the district conference. Because for you to be taken to the delegate conference, you have to get 1/3 of the districts, all the districts in Uganda. So he was the only one who attained that threshold created by the constitution, UPC constitution of 2008. So that was the elections which took place. The voting took place in every district. So the person who followed him was Pulkol with 12 districts, and he congratulated Honorable Jimmy immediately upon winning the elections. So we were waiting for the delegate conference to be called by the party president, Ambassador Tunu, just like Mama called the delegate conference for him to be sworn in. Unfortunately for him, he said he can never allow a son of Obote to be president of UPC. Obote's family was removed in 1985 on July 27th. He cannot allow it to happen. But I went to his home, I discussed with him. I said, that is the reason why we accepted you to be sworn in. Mama allowed you to be sworn in 2010. And she would have refused you to participate because you were part of the coup leaders of July 27th, 1985. So let us leave the past. Let us leave the past to remain behind us. Let bygones be bygones. So this is not the time to settle your old scores. He said he will create a situation which will be miserable for the party. And remember, these new colonialists who are trained in America have always wanted to destroy UPC.
And the new colonialists you're referring to here is...
Yes, those people who are trained in the best universities in America. You remember the government was overthrown with the help of those new colonialists. So their agents, when they came back to destroy UPC in 2010, they thought they had destroyed UPC for good. And they were jubilating all over that that's the end of UPC. Unfortunately, UPC came roaring back because it did not die with the founders. UPC as a party lives in the souls of Ugandans, because every hospital you go to, you'll see the foundation laid by UPC. Every school you go to, Tesa College Lloyd, Torogas, among others. All hospitals you see in Chivoga, Chiriandongo, Abim, all over the country.
Okay.
So in other words, they couldn't destroy it. So 2015 then, he refused to call the delegate conference. The members decided, because in UPC, the members are the most important component, or the body of the party. They can remove anybody.
Okay.
So we gathered, and they agreed to turn their consultation, because they were all delegates who were supposed to be called. They gathered in Kampala. They announced before earlier that they are coming, because the date of swearing in was known. So they gathered, Akena was sworn in, and he started his work. So Bosa, who was not number 2, challenged the swearing in of Akena, that it was not done.
On the swearing in, was it constitutionally best?
That is why I'm going to. So they took the case to His Lordship Yasin Nyanzi. They took just that element, not the elections. They couldn't challenge the elections because the elections were organized by Ambassador Tuno, and only Akena won the elections unopposed. So they couldn't challenge that one. They went and said, why was he sworn in without the party president calling the delegate conference? But it was impossible. The man had given his views clearly. He couldn't allow the Obote family to come back. And he usurped the powers of the members. So the members said, we are the owners of the party. They swore in Akena. Therefore, going back there, yes, His Lordship did not look into details, the small issues, which were the scores that Ambassador Tuno was trying to score. He only looked at the law as it is. This was a political matter. It was not a legal matter.
Okay.
And at that point, he said the swearing in happened with the delegate conference not convened by the party president. So we challenged it in the higher court, that's Court of Appeal, to give us a better view of the issues which were underlying, and the facts, and the truth, which Ambassador Tuno told us. So Justice Kavuma upheld that Akena is still president until 2020, when there was COVID, an electoral commission had released the roadmap. Elections were around the corner for 2021. This, nominations started in 2020. We couldn't wait and sit and be deregistered. When Akena was still president, we organized the district conference, still at the polling stations, which we call the district conference, in every district. So he was elected again. Once again, he was elected overwhelmingly. And the date was gazetted in all the gazettes, including the national newspapers. The delegates were informed, and every preparation was in high gear. We informed the Minister of Health since it was COVID period. We informed the Minister of Justice, the Inspector General of Police, the Electoral Commission, and all these people confirmed to send the observers. And the observers gathered. We mentioned the place, the venue, which was Kasangati Resort Hotel, and the observers came of all these entities of government. They were there to witness, including other political parties, party leaders. So as we were preparing, we prepared, the delegate conference took place on the 1st August, on Saturday, 2020. It took place on Saturday morning. We started hearing that there is a court ruling, which happened, but we couldn't see any order. We waited until Monday. There was no court order in the morning. We took the report to the Electoral Commission of the elections of Honorable Jimmy Akena for the second term, when he was still president, legally, as upheld by the Court of Appeal. Okay. So there, when we came back to office, that's when we get the court order on Monday, on the 3rd August 2020. But it was already overtaken by events. So they challenged that.
What was the date on that court order?
It was on the day before the delegate conference, but we didn't get it.
So ideally,
so the problem was not ours. The problem was the court officials who did not give it to the lawyers to send it to us in time. So the delegate conference had taken place. We had submitted the report of the delegate conference, including the cabinet formed, the new cabinet formed by Akena for his second term. And they challenged, therefore, the Professor Kakonge and the group. Okay. They challenged that we did.
Before we get into the challenge,
yes.
just having an analytical view of just the roadmap that you've shared with us since 2015. Yes, turning to you, Joseph Ocheno, in regards to what happened, especially in 2015, the party members choosing against the party president's sentiments at that time and going by their own direction. In terms of the constitution for the UPC, how would they have handled that better?
This is a very difficult conversation for me. because in 2023 I did not expect UPC to be where we are today. And listening to Fred, it's a bit concerning. Let me say this. Quite clearly, UPC is the political party that led this country to independence, and we did so democratically. I was lucky to have been a close aide to the late president, and as his chairman of the External Bureau for UK. And I worked with Milton Obote closely. And one of the few things that Obote taught us was to respect the Constitution of Uganda People's Congress and respect the law. It's very clearly the case that what happened was that indeed elections for district councils, district conferences took place in 2015. Jimmy, on the basis of that evidence, won the majority of those districts, and without specific details. What is at stake is whether or not, because Jimmy won the majority of those districts, notwithstanding all the challenges that existed at the time, he had a right to call for a delegates conference. He did not. The party constitution says the party president does call a delegates conference, and that's basically the hinge of this matter. Jimmy had the view that Olara was seeking allegedly to undermine his leadership, including failing to call it a delegates conference appropriately. Jimmy had both a political approach, which was possibly formal to the members, but particularly in this case, a legal alternative, that if Olara did not call for delegates conference, that's what the law is for. Jimmy ought to have gone to court. He didn't. So he called for a delegates conference. Interestingly, as it happens, the Olara team, members of UPC who agreed, went to court, and that's what courts of law are for. The justices, looked at the evidence presented by Professor Kakonga and team, and so did Jimmy. Jimmy obviously made a submission in this case. And the ruling was quite clearly that Jimmy had not been elected in conformity with the Constitution of Uganda People's Congress. Jimmy, on advice of his lawyers, as I understand, was told that he didn't really have a leg to stand on. Jimmy went on to appeal with Betty, as I understand it. And the appeal, okay, quite true. They were given a stay. The stay was extremely unfortunate. A stay that from January 2016 to July 2020. That's a very long time, basically holding a political party hostage. It took, including my own intervention, actually. I used my Sunday column to write an opinion to challenge many of these things. My Sunday column went on Sunday, and Monday the matter was brought for a hearing on Wednesday, 29th of July 2020. That hearing, Justice Milagonje asked for a written submission by Jimmy's team by the following week, Friday. The now Olara Walubi decided by Friday, and asked that Jimmy's next delegates conference should not take place, which was 1st of August. It's extraordinary that this was a big story in town, and Fred and Jimmy would have been at Uganda House, and they didn't know what happened on Wednesday up to the Saturday, so they proceeded with their delegates conference. So I found that rather uncomfortable. Okay. But that said, though, quite clearly, last Friday, 13th of October,
before we get to 13th of October, we're going to be taking a short break. We just wanted to establish some of the beginning facts and the trails of what is happening today and the implications of what the Supreme Court has shared. Of course, it gives you the factionalism of politics, especially party politics. On one side, they're exercising their freedom rights. On the other side, it's being referred to as hostage. And so we're going to leave that to your digest. We're going to be taking a short breather. We're going to be returning now to actually have a breakdown of the realities. To stay with us.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Every Monday at 10 p.m.
I'm the champ. You want to come get it.
Watch the latest on local and international sports news and analysis. We never stop giving you more. Every Monday, 10 p.m. on NTV Spotlights.
Oh, nice pass, Kaluma. De Fruto has settled for the bronze.
Only gets better. Every Monday at 10 p.m. on NTV Spotlights.
on the next episode.
Is brought to you by Rock Boom. Feel the positive energy.
On the next episode.
Great as a friend and as a person because you're extraordinary. But I can't continue to be a weak person. I can't allow that.
Yes, I'm sure that Lorena knows everything my mom did, but didn't tell me out of respect. Because she knew it would hurt me. She didn't want me to suffer. Because she loves me. She didn't say anything. She's quiet because she's a mom herself. And she knows what it must feel like for a son to know.
Rock Boom, now in a new bottle with the same taste and same positive energy. Available in a 320 ml PET bottle. Rock Boom, feel the positive energy.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Okay, all right. The new politics that is running left, right, and center, factionalism of political parties. This morning in our Kickstarter, looking at the implications of the Supreme Court ruling on UPC, stating that Jimmy Akena is not the party president, regarding it as null and void. Joseph Ocheno, who's a political analyst, and Fred Ebil, Secretary General to the UPC, are here. They've already presented their facts from their sides and where they sit. Now, just to take away some nitty-gritties in between there, you had a contention on what please. Joseph had shared with us, stating that the very same three judges that were on the ruling in the 2015 are the very same three judges who later tell you by court procedure that because of events that had already existed and taken place, that they can no longer, you know, have a say in what's happening in the UPC. Clarify on that, please, Ebil.
Yeah. As I told you, when we received this ruling on the 3rd in the office, the BOSA sponsored by Walubiri and the group, Professor Kakonge, went to appeal to the three judges who had ruled earlier in the ruling that we got late after we had already elected Honorable Akena for the second term, that there was contempt of court. Then the three judges looked at the facts and the truth and said the contempt case that they raised, the three judges who gave them that ruling initially, that is Justice His Lordship Madrama, Her Lordship Muliagonja, and Elizabeth Musoke, Her Lordship Elizabeth Musoke, gave a clear judgment that that contempt has no leg. It cannot stand now, meaning that it was overtaken by events of the 1st August.
Okay, all right.
So therefore, they appealed to the Supreme Court.
Okay. And
that's the appeal they have not yet processed. It's Appeal 34. That's the only appeal we know. The other one that their lordships ruled in Supreme Court was on a notice that a lawyer gave earlier, and he was never instructed to give that notice because it had already been overtaken by events, and for us we were contented with the second term. So therefore, this ruling, we did not participate in it. We did not submit any written submission on the records of court, if you see the ruling, and we did not instruct any lawyer to proceed. That's why they ruled on the submission of Professor Kakonge's side, which we never participated because we had already settled the matter.
Okay.
On the
all right.
first
Speaking of settling the matter, Joseph, you're not yet settled with this matter because, according to you, you ought to be the president of the Uganda People's Congress.
Yes, but that's a little different matter. But I was actually trying to conclude the introductory element of the conversation because Fred gave a very long, detailed position from his perspective, and mine would be obviously from how I look at it, but true how I believe that the party members and independent observers would. So I was just saying that, look, the Friday ruling, 13th of October 2023, these are the most senior judges on the land. it would be extraordinary that they would look through a matter like this and they would not look through the background of the entirety of the whole thing, have sight of the judgment, and Fred does have. Quite clearly, the justices were very considered in their submissions, and in my opinion, quite conclusive. The truth and the fact is this, that the Supreme Court has ruled that Jimmy was not elected in conformity with the party constitution in 2015, notwithstanding all the underlying issues. As a matter of interest, one of the things that Fred talks about in terms of the dismissal of the contempt of court case, as I understand it, it was not dismissed for anything else except for want of prosecution. So it was basically a legal technicality that the guys who sued Jimmy for contempt of court did not actively, if you like, pursue the case, and just purely that. But regardless, I think the issue is not about whether or not contempt of court did occur. The fact is that Jimmy has been declared not leader of the party, not elected in conformity with the party constitution, and so is not president of the party, and so has been occupying the office of the president of Uganda People's Congress since 2015, and constitutionally illegally, and his election is null and void. Now, in terms of my leadership, this is where it comes in. I wasn't a party to this, as Fred rightly suggests, because I was not a candidate in 2015. I was a candidate in 2010. I stood with Olara, I stood with Jimmy. Olara won the elections in 2010, and once Olara won the elections, notwithstanding all the underlying issues, and of course as political party leaders, we need to take emotions out of these things, and particularly as UPC, which is the political party that will seek to guide this country post Mr. Museveni. We need to make sure that we're very careful that we do things that bring party members together rather than sets us apart, and this country together. So really, in the 2010 elections, I had a major interest, and but Olara won the elections, and we allowed Olara, meaning we allowed Olara to lead, meaning that you concede. So we conceded and let Olara have the opportunity to go ahead and do his job. From 2015, when Jimmy and others stood in those elections, we expected, and I expected, a new leader to emerge. A new leader has not emerged. So the reality, unfortunately, which is a very sad reality for this party, is that since Olara, we've not had a leader with the mandate of the members. So in 2020, July 29th, indeed, when the initial ruling came in that Fred refers to, that allegedly they did not see or they did not know. That's why they had the delegates conference on 1st of August. 4 weeks later, the justice ruled very definitively: one, Jimmy was not elected in conformity with the party constitution, and two, that it was only fair that party members be given the opportunity to have a fresh elections. It's at that stage when I decided to put my name forward for elections. Now, which elections? Name
forward to who? If on the side of the party they were not having they were not accepting to have fresh elections.
Can I help you with that?
Okay.
If what you call the side of the party mean the people who are occupying Uganda House, the Court of Appeal had quite clearly ruled that they were not the party, the leading party. So the party was basically the burden taken back to Olara. Olara side of the party. Olara had, and it's a bit of boring thing for what citizens need to know. Olara had handed over to his vice president, Joseph Bosa. Joseph Bosa had, before he went for medical treatment, handed over to Peter Walubiri, who I think was his vice president at the time. So basically it means, by implications, that Walubiri was the rightful person now to hold fresh elections. If you like, on behalf of Olara, on behalf of the parliament.
The fresh elections.
To elect fresh elections. And that's what took place, and that's the elections in which I participated in. And in that election, there was Peter Walubiri, myself, Dixon Opul, and Dan Okello. Granted, very unfortunately for this party, that those elections were...
So the Walubiri faction...
You can call it Walubiri faction.
The Akena faction.
Indeed, you can call it Walubiri faction. But that was and is the mandated wing of the party, respected and recognized as of by the Supreme Court.
And where's the evidence of recognition, Joseph?
No, the Supreme Court ruled on the 13th.
No, away from the Supreme Court's ruling, what other evidence do you have to base on that you are the rightful faction of UPC?
No, I'm not saying. Supreme Court ruling and the Court of Appeal ruling, they're the superior organs to the party constitution.
If those are taken away, what else does your faction hold on to?
Elections, like the way you saw Akena's videos all over. Elections.
I don't know. With respect, Fred, whenever you speak, allow you to make your submissions, rather long submissions, by the way. So quite frankly, I don't want to know what other evidence you want me to provide than the fact that a Court of Appeal ruled and instructed elections to take place. So unless you then begin to doubt the position of the Court of Appeal, or
does your faction have its own constitution? At that time, it did have its own constitution.
By the way, let me clarify.
Yeah.
I have said that I don't have factions in UPC. I'm too big for factions in Uganda People's Congress. I do not belong to a Walubiri faction, and I do not belong to a Jimmy Akena faction. What I belong to is Uganda People's Congress of Milton Obote, and I refer to the Constitution of Uganda People's Congress as provided. And beyond that, wherever the Constitution and the laws of this country guide us, that is where I will be. I'm very, very clear about that. I do not belong to any of these factions. As I said, I am too big for them.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I could respond like this. You could ask them that even handovers of a school prefect, there are videos captured. Where is the handover of Olaro Tunutubosa? Where are the videos? Where are the videos
it doesn't have
of
to
handover?
Be videos,
what
but
I'm
of course
saying,
it has
pictures,
to be documentation.
Yes. It should be there. So all these are fallacies, an imagination of a good marketing officer. He would be a very good salesman in NTV here. He knows how to speak very well. But as far as leadership of UPC is concerned, I'm not aware.
Fred, sometimes you get a little bit excited.
No. I'm just trying to
I need to change
yes.
Whatever the circumstance, you can't present.
With due respect.
No, you can't present.
You're very good.
Okay, Joseph, let's allow it.
With absolute
I'm
respect.
saying you're a good communicator. I'm just praising you.
A very good communicator.
Yeah, I'm praising you.
Yeah,
so you can market an until to appear like a mountain, and people will believe that's a mountain. But there was no elections. It was a fallacy. Jimmy Akena was elected. There was no elections that took place, other than the 1st August, Saturday, 1st August 2020 elections of Jimmy Akena, which was the second term. The issues of the court were overtaken by events, and a contempt judgment came against Professor Kakonga and the group. And they are in court, Supreme Court case number 34, that we are waiting for them to prosecute.
Okay.
For us, we are in office. Today, the party president is addressing into detail, is giving the details about these issues at 11 a.m. And I would request all journalists who are watching to go to the party headquarters. The party president is in his office working. Okay. And I'm also working.
What does this make of the alliance that UPC had built under the Jimmy Akena presidency with the National Resistance Movement, Joseph?
That is actually my number 2 fundamental disagreement with Jimmy. Jimmy is a friend of mine, a brother of mine, a colleague of mine, and we work very closely with Jimmy. And for the record, you'll know that Jim and I, once we defeated NRA in court, that's why I'm saying very constitutional, once we defeated NRA in court and sought for return to multipartyism, Dr. Bote asked me to return to Uganda to join my colleagues and our colleagues in the country to prepare this party for the future, which I'm trying to continue doing. And we came back with Jimmy, so we worked very closely together. Where I fundamentally disagree with him is that anything that breaches the Constitution of Uganda People's Congress, as indeed has been his alleged election, and so for that we fundamentally disagree, regardless of my own personal interest as a candidate. In fact, my disagreement was not because I was a candidate or because I'm a candidate, but primarily on the basis of the interest of this party, where we would like to see this party go as members of this party, and where Jesus would want the situation in the Middle East to be going to.
Jesus is not part let's not bring Jesus.
I'm invoking a very deliberate communication thing to go in the Middle East, but just indeed where Milton Obote, as father of this country, would want, and father of this party would like it to be. Number 1. Number 2, the question of Jimmy is
called the Holy Spirit also.
The Holy Spirit is involved. But number 2, where the link between Jimmy and NRA is something that I fundamentally disagree. Is one of those things that even if Jimmy had been elected in conformity with the constitution of the party and he were my leader, I would fundamentally disagree with him on his relationship with NRA, especially if it's a relationship which is dubious to the extent that party members don't know, especially if it's a relationship that seems to serve particular individual interests rather than members of this party.
When you say particular individual interests, who are the individuals referring to?
Quite clearly, it would be be Jimmy and Betty and anybody else associated with them who serve that very particular interest, because it doesn't serve UPC members, it doesn't serve the majority of the citizens of this country.
Is this in light of the fact that Betty was called on to serve this country on cabinet level?
I do not know what you call serving this country, but because you're asking my opinion about the link between this, so that would be about semantics, Luke. But I want to emphasize this further. To the extent that Jimmy knows, ironically, Cecilia Gual was sacked from the chairmanship of the Presidential Police Commission by Milton Obote, and there was a party to these things for, if you like, an hour, far less than the position of Betty. That a member of Parliament of Uganda People's Congress, under the leadership of President of Uganda People's Congress, allegedly sitting in Uganda House, to be able to have an association with the NRA in a manner in which we have no clue, breaching the party constitution, is quite an extreme journey taken too far. So I'm fundamentally opposed to Jimmy and Betty's position on that. Okay. In the event that I was declared and elected formally leader of the Uganda People's Congress, it is something that I would seek to invoke.
Bill, a small response to the alliance that the UPC has, can I say, enjoyed with the current regime. What have been the benefits of that alliance, and what's the purpose of that alliance?
UPC came to power and fought for independence because of building bridges. You remember I explained one time when I was with him in some other television program, the night meeting between the Sekabaka, Sir Freddy Walgembe Mutesa II, and Dr. Bote, who was driven in the car of Abu Mayanja Kachama, in the middle of the night, to discuss what will be the future of the kingdoms in the independent Uganda. That is where the alliance was crafted, the KY-UPC alliance. That is where the alliance is. I've told you so many times, you can be a good salesman, but you cannot know politics more than what I do. That's what I studied. So with that meeting at night, it ended late in the night. It was about building bridges, knowing that out of many we are one, believing that much as we come from different political parties, different communities, our future is shared as Ugandans. That is what brought up independence. Without that, UPC wouldn't have been the party which was handed the instruments of power.
So bringing it to 2023.
Coming to 2023, why do we sit in iPod with NRM? Why do we sit in iPod with JEMA, DP, PPP, and other parties who are in iPod? It's because we believe that in Uganda, much as we come from different political parties, our interest is shared as Ugandans.
All right.
So therefore, when NUP, first of all, going back, even when FDC was the leader of opposition, when the leader of opposition requested us that they want a shadow minister, Beta all came to office, we accepted, and they appointed a UPC member in the shadow government. In this term, the leader of opposition appointed Honorable Dur Jonathan in the shadow cabinet in Parliament. Likewise, when the government, the NRM, wanted the skills and the talents that UPC have to be appointed, we allowed them to appoint. And they appointed Ruth Acheng, who is now an ambassador. She was initially appointed as Fisheries, State Minister for Fisheries. That is Ruth Acheng. But later on, there were some issues. She was appointed to Canada as an ambassador.
Okay.
Then Betty Among was appointed as a minister.
All right.
So we cannot deny the nation or the people of Uganda to use the talents that we have.
And the people of Uganda are asking themselves the big question: what next for the UPC in light of this implication? Let me start with you, Joseph, in your closing remarks.
Yeah, but just to clarify, the UPC-KY alliance was a very definitive alliance. It's not as Fred says. It was an alliance following an election. Some of those other things I hear says following elections, and that when UPC had already won the majority seats in Parliament, actually UPC asked for a government of national opportunity is simply because DP did not accept to go into there. So it's very different from the arrangement that NRA has with Beta Morgan. But look, Beta has an opportunity to choose either to go to NRA or to be a member of Uganda People's Congress. But way forward, really, we just need to respect the Constitution of Uganda People's Congress, and we need to respect the rule of law. The Court of Appeal ruled, and the Supreme Court has spoken. Where we are at the moment, it is very clearly the case that Jimmy just needs to have some sense of humility, sense of interest for this party and this country, and review his position. Quite clearly, whatever's been happened, we are waiting for a judicial review, which is a matter for my case, and I hope that judicial review will determine whether or not I'm elected leader of the party, or indeed Walobiri, or fresh elections on the basis of the Court of Appeal ruling. In the event that I'm actually declared leader, I will be seeking to build bridges, which may or may not include Jimmy and anybody else who's willing to work with us to rebuild the party going forward.
Secretary General, do we have to wait for 2025 for you to respond constitutionally?
Actually, as I've told you,
ruling?
The UPC fought and won the elections of 62 and defended it.
We're talking about 2025
We fought for 1980 elections, we defended it. We fought for this 2015, we defended it. 2020 elections to 2025, we fought for it and we shall defend it. Elections will take place in 2025 for the new party president when the second term of Jimmy Akena ends. So the term of office ends in 2025. It's less than 2 years. We appeal to members to be calm. We appeal to our partners to be calm.
Thank
the
you
UPC
so much, Mr. Ebil.
will remain under the leadership of Honorable Jimmy Akena.
Okay, all right. Well, that marks the end of this conversation. Your 2 cents will be taken over on our social media platforms, #MorningAtNTV. Do stay with us.